years of being around those guys that had those cool Harleys, I really wanted one, but they were really expensive compared to, you know, the kind of money I was making and the kind of job I had, and I was still, you know, just a kid. So I started combing through the swap meets looking for parts. I came across a guy selling a Basket Cate 78 Shovelhead FX swing arm frame bike. You know, did some wheeling and dealing with him, and I ended up getting this thing, and it was, engine was all apart, cases were fucked up, and just some fucking mess, man. I mean, it's something that, you know, now I would laugh at it. I wouldn't even think about buying it, but I bought it back then. And then I needed to find, I realized I was so far over my head with this project, I needed to find somebody who could show me how to put all that stuff together, because flywheels were apart. I mean, this thing was down to nothing. I doubt it was all one bike. It was probably several bikes that were piled into milk crates, sold off as a bike. Went over to the shop in Pomona called Beck's Chopper Design, which was, if you touched anything that had to do with V-twin stuff before the big heyday when everybody and their brother decided they were going to be a Harley guy, back from the late 1970s to the 1980s. Beck's Chopper Design was the place to get a bike built out in this area, in the Inland Empire. It was the spot. Jim Beck, who's been building bikes forever, I think, which is funny. I talked to him the other day, and I haven't talked to him in 2 years. He builds now that he no longer, he shut his shop down, but now he just does vintage restorations for museums. He built several bikes for Otis Chandler, has a long repertoire of just amazing motorcycles that he's built. I walked in there, tried to talk to those guys. Everybody seemed pretty busy, and Jim said, "Look, kid, there's a guy in the back," and I think he was fucking with me just to see how bad I wanted to build this motorcycle. He said, "If you walk out that side door and walk to the back of the building, the last garage door, there's a guy in there. He's got a little shop, and he does the kind of work that you're talking about." He says, "I only do complete builds, but if you want to do something like that and actually learn how to do some stuff as a mechanic, his name's Animal." And it was like, holy shit, a guy named Animal, this is going to be good. And I don't think he actually thought I was going to walk past his half a dozen guard dogs and crazy looking people that were back there to actually get to this guy, but I wanted to build that bike pretty bad. So I walked back there, and there's this big old dude, full beard. There's a gun out on the desk, and some interesting smelling smoke in the air when I walked into this room, you know, and a bunch of old bikes torn apart and just shit everywhere. And this dude looked at me like I was trying to rob him when I walked in. He's got his fucking hand next to the gun, like, "What the fuck do you want?" And I said, "Hey, Jim up front told me to come in here and tell you about a bike build I'm trying to get done." And he started laughing. Dude just straight started laughing at me like I was telling jokes, you know. And he said, "You're going to build a bike." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to build a fucking bike, man." I said, "You going to help me or not?" And he stopped laughing, and he looked at me and kind of cocked his head like, "Oh, really, smartass?" He said, "What are you going to build?" And I told him what it was, and I told him the condition it was in. And he said, "All right, I'll help you build it." He said, "You want to sweep my shop?" I said, "Where's the broom?" And that started a very long friendship between me and my good friend Butch, who I didn't know at the time was the president of an outlaw biker club. And this was my first real dealings with, other than the guys that worked for my dad, it was like the first real dealings with, you know, one percenters out in the world. You know, I'm in a back room of a building that no one knows where I'm at. I'm 17 years old, and I'm around some pretty hardcore fucking guys who turned out to be some of the nicest people, most trustworthy people I've ever known. And it was definitely an experience. We took a while because I didn't have a bunch of money, but he taught me how to balance and true flywheels, taught me how to assemble the motor, taught me how to fix the transmission, which parts I had that didn't belong in that transmission because somebody just piled a bunch of crap in a milk crate and sent me on my way with it, you know. So I had to go through and dissect my big pile of junk and figure out what parts to keep and what parts to get rid of. And about a year and a half later, I had a complete motorcycle.